Welcome to Only Murders in My Mind, a Random Thought production. Hi, I'm Carol Bissett, a crime writer, and I invite you with my co-presenters, Liz Hedgecock and Mike Jackson, each week to our conversations on all things murderous. Hello everybody and welcome to episode 2 of Only Murders in My Mind. And I have my co-presenters with me again, the lovely Liz Hedgecock and Mike Jackson. Hello both.
Hi Carol.
Right. And today we're going to talk about, I like this, all the murders you can eat. The actual title ended up being talk about what crimes we consume, but I think that's probably better, all the murders you can eat. Yum yum. The books that we like to read and the TV and films we watch, and I must admit I watch some things again and again, and Agatha Christie. I mean, you can't go far wrong from a good Agatha Christie film in all its variations. Come on, I was going to say you have likes and dislikes there, don't you? So we'll come to that. But it has. If you are a crime writer, I think you have writers that you read and read and read, and they're bound to influence the sort of things that you write and how you write. Personally, some of the people that I like to read are people like Val McDermott. But somebody said to me the other day, do you draw a line in the sand about how grisly your murder scenes and torture scenes? Yes, there are some torture scenes in your books, and yes, not as bad as some of the Wire in the Blood series. If you've ever seen them, they're quite graphic and gruesome in places.
I think it's fair to say, Carol, that you do call a spade in your books. You know, it's not like the murders are happening behind a curtain.
No, that's true.
I think also, you get feedback from your readers too, don't you? So you know what they like.
Yes.
And why upset the apple cart by suddenly
changing.
What sort of feedback do you get?
I get positive feedback. Now and again I get, oh, Carol, I didn't think you were capable of writing that. I am an old lady, by the way. I know it's hard to tell from my voice.
Really?
Yes, she is.
Gallant as ever, Mike.
I think we're around the same age, Mike, so be careful what you say.
Think we are. No, I think I might actually be a bit older, Carol, but let's not go down that road today.
And I'll read a little bit, a bit of the more grisly bits later for you, so you know where I'm coming from. But yeah, we'll go to Mike first this time. Liz is she won't mind.
Not at all.
What sort of crime books do you... I know you read a lot, Mike, don't you? You're an avid reader.
Yeah, I read a lot. And funny enough, nowadays I tend to listen a lot more than I read. I'm very much into Audible. And when I go off on my walks, I quite enjoy listening to stories. I like listening to podcasts, and I'll be listening to this one as well. But I do like to...
That's two people.
I do like to listen to stories. I suppose as a youngster, 10, 11, 12, I remember devouring every Arthur Conan Doyle in the school library. I love that. And Agatha Christie followed quickly after
What's
that.
What's your favourite Sherlock story?
I'd probably have to go with The Hound of the Baskervilles because it's a bit on the scary side.
It is scary, yeah.
See, I'm very much, I love the earlier ones.
Right.
So, yeah. It's The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, the first book of stories. Yeah. That's where most of my favourites are.
I tell you what, I was going off on a tangent slightly, but I really, really enjoyed the Cumberbatch, when he did Sherlock.
Yes.
I thought that was very cleverly done.
Yeah.
Very cleverly done.
Yeah, brought into modern times very successfully, I think.
Yeah. But I also like people like Stieg Larsson, who's Joe Nesbo, who were both a bit vicious in some of the murders that happened there. And I also, I'm very much into technology and AI is something I'll come back to at another time. But Ben, I can never get his name right, Aranovich.
Oh, yes.
Rivers of London.
Oh,
series.
I like those, yeah.
They're really good, the whole gods and goddesses of the Thames.
Yes,
And all
yeah,
I'm
and
working my way through those slowly.
the spirit police
That's
or whatever
right.
they're called.
I also enjoyed Ellis Peters. He did the Cat File.
Mm.
The monk murdering
Yeah.
people. And at the moment, I am reading a book called In the Blink of an Eye. And the fascination with this, I'm about halfway through. Fascinating book. It's brand new by a lady called Jo Callahan, and it's her debut novel. And it's two detectives, one human, one AI.
I've heard a lot about this book.
It really is very good, very clever.
I'd have to give that one a look, I think. And this is a debut, you said?
It's a debut novel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
If you go into somewhere like Waterstones, you can't miss it.
It's been well
It's
promoted.
been well promoted. Yes.
But if it's really good, then
Yeah.
fair
No,
enough.
I think the thing is, it's a fascinating idea that she got hold of, and if you'd read this story even just 2 years ago, you would have said, no, this is all make believe and sci-fi. But the way AI is taking over the world at the moment, you read this story and you think, hey, this could actually be happening. Police could be using AI as a detective soon.
Well, if
Feels
you...
much more believable.
I was going to say, if you look at the technology that we believe the police can use now, the fact that we've got more CCTV in this country, I think, than any other place in the world. I might be wrong. And you can trace somebody's footsteps with little gaps. I know now people have got cameras on their doors. So, it's there was a series on a while ago called Capture. And it was how, did you see that?
Yeah.
And it was how they were editing.
Manipulating.
To try and put somebody in the frame that wasn't there. But
That's really worrying.
yes.
But this one, I mean, the detective, it's a pilot project, and the real detective doesn't want really anything to do with it, but she's been forced upon her. And the AI detective is AIDE, Artificial Intelligent Detective Entity. Has a name, Locke, and it's little things like they're looking through, as you were saying, they were looking through CCTV footage. And while normally that would take a couple of policemen days and days and days, Locke, this AI detective, can do it in a matter of seconds.
Yes.
And that is probably true
Well,
today.
I'm sure I've read in the news about AI can go through things at fantastic speed and find things like viable stuff for good health outcomes and
That's
things
right.
like that.
Yeah.
Well, if you put the face recognition, that I'm sure it's much more widespread now, but it was something we used to see the FBI using, where they're scanning face after face after face, very, very quickly to try and locate. Now, sometimes I wonder how good. I mean, is it true, or is it is it all like fiction? But I suspect there's a lot more going on that we don't know about, because they're not going to tell us, are they?
I think the thing with AI that it's much more in the public domain now, and has been for the last 18 months, 2 years. People have been working with AI for years and years and years now, all the big companies. But it's the pace that I think is either exciting you, if you're somebody like me, or scaring the living daylights out of some people, because this is going at such a pace that nobody's quite sure just how clever, if you can use that word about machines, how clever AI will be 12 months from now.
How advanced?
Yes.
Well, we've come a long way since they did was it the bomb? Was that the first computer when they were trying to decode the German messages?
Yes.
Yeah, so we've come along.
Colossus.
Yeah, Colossus. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I've taken us off on a tangent.
Well, that never normally happens.
Oh.
With you.
No.
Oh, we'll go to Liz for books. We'll come back to you for TV and films. And again, I know you are an avid reader. I don't know how you find the time, because you do such a lot. But would you feel you were missing out on something if you didn't read as well as write and produce your novels, etc.?
I don't read as much as I'd like to.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I must admit, I set myself a Goodreads target every year of about 60 books. And that's one of the things that makes me read, because I think I have to meet. I'm that sort of person where if I set myself a target, I'll be like, I have to do this somehow. And I read all sorts of books, so it's not just crime. So I'm reading Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow at the moment, and I just read So Late in the Day by Claire Keegan. But also this year, I've read the first May Gray book.
Oh.
I read Tied Up in Tinsel, which is a Roderick Allain mystery, which I hadn't read before. And what was the other one I read? Cards on the Table, an Agatha Christie that I hadn't seen before. And in some respects, I enjoyed the May Gray, although it had flaws. Is it Ngao Marsh? I could never pronounce it.
Ngao Marsh.
Ngao Marsh, right. That I was disappointed with, and I must admit I did a double check when I checked the publication date, because it was actually published in the 70s, but it felt so much older, and some of the attitudes in it were questionable.
Dickensian.
I think Dickens would have been like a bit more nice and frankly.
Well, when you think of what Great Britain was like in the 70s, in terms of how we talked about people with disabilities, with race, etc., a very different world.
But it was there was snobbiness, there was prejudice, there were various things about it. But I must admit, the thing that enraged me, as well as some of that, was you couldn't possibly have guessed who did it, because it was one of these where you get lots and lots of information on the last page, pretty much. It's like, wow, come on now, seriously. And I don't think that's fair. So.
That's what we were saying in the last episode, weren't we? It's being bombarded with information in the last chapter, so you can bring all the threads together. And quite a lot of writers do it.
It reminds me of young children in school when they used to have to do their creative writing, and the boys in particular who hated writing would get to that point where they think, I'm fed up with this, so I woke up, it had been a nightmare. Or just simply the end.
And then we slayed the dragon and we all went home to tea. The end.
Yes.
But you do get writers. I mean, my wife has just read a book, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was called, but she said the first 75% of it was really gripping, was great. And the ending was so bad that it spoiled the whole thing. And it was literally an ending of almost, I woke up and had a dream. It wasn't quite that, but it was condensed into 2 pages instead of being thought of. It goes back to what we were saying in the last episode about crime writing needs to be plotted. You need to know where you're going.
I mean, I've written bad endings. I haven't published them because I've got a good editor. But
who's your editor, Carol? Just out of curiosity.
Well, it might be Liz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anybody out there is looking for an editor,
My books.
Our books are full.
They actually are at the moment. Yes, I'm not taking any new clients for a few months.
Yes, but yes, and we will talk about this in depth at some point about how to get the best product on the shelf.
Yes.
I don't care how good you are at English and how much you use spell check. You need somebody else to read your manuscript for you.
Other eyes on your book.
You do, yeah.
And dare I say, there might even be AI eyes. But I only say that to be controversial.
Yes, and to wind me up.
So my favourite, as I say, Val McDermott. At the moment, like Mike, I've got audiobooks on the go, and I'm listening to Mark Billingham's books. And this was purely because I saw him on a television series where they were interviewing crime writers who had used a real crime within their stories. And I thought he spoke very well, so I downloaded. The problem with me is I downloaded a book halfway through a series.
I can't do that.
I'll start at one.
I know. But I can't read on public transport now. I start feeling slightly travel sick. So an audio book, or if you go for a walk, or if you're just waiting for an hour in the opticians because one of the opticians hasn't turned up. Not complaining, but that happened yesterday. If you've got an audio book, you've got a friend.
I don't want to keep mentioning age, Carol. But when you get to my age, I had to have hearing aids fitted a couple of years ago. And my hearing aids are such that they link automatically to my phone. So I can actually be listening to an audio anywhere I like. In fact, when these two are talking, I'm halfway through. But the great thing with
explains a great deal.
The great thing with these things, you don't have to walk around with earbuds or anything in. I can be permanently connected to my phone and to audio.
And I mean, yeah, that's really good.
But
it's a bit like the Man from U.N.C.L.E., isn't it? Where you go,
yeah,
yes, Mr.
right.
Waverley. This is Ilya Kuryakin. Go ahead to show me age now, aren't I? Yes. So now this might be a bit controversial, but I like the strike books that J.K. Rowling writes under a different name. I think it's Galbraith. Thank you. I have read all the books probably 4 or 5 times. I've got one on audio. I've watched the series that have been on the television, which we discussed that she keeps her stories very close to her books, doesn't she? And she has very much an input to how they're made, which, she can do because she's very, very rich. A lot of people don't. I don't know what your views are on that particular series.
I like the series on the television. I tried reading one of the books and wasn't over impressed with it, but I quite like the strike series watching it on the television.
I haven't actually done either, so I can't comment on this.
Right.
I think with me and with adaptations, I kind of either like them to be like the BBC Sherlock, where it's clearly going to be a long way away and have some elements from the original stories, or else I like them to be pretty faithful. And what really winds me up is when you have them and they've decided that this Agatha Christie production is going to be edgy.
Yeah.
And it's going to have lots of things in it that weren't there before because we're going to be edgy because it's after 9, and it's like, I don't want to watch that.
No.
I want to see something reasonably, close to the book, which I like. So maybe that's just me.
No, I think you're right there. I mean, I remember watching a series. It wasn't crime. It was called The Thornbirds. And then read the book, not the other way around, thinking, this isn't the same story. Bits of it were, but, this is how they get adapted. And, of course, a lot of writers, if somebody came up to me and said, Amazon want to make a series of your Warrington Detective, I'd go, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be going, well, how much input will I have? I'd be going, give me the money, you can do it. So, yeah, it's...
But where would your threshold be?
I don't know.
I mean, if they said, oh yeah, we want to make your lead character, we want her to be like a short dizzy blonde and like curvy and...
Yeah, and she's not. No.
And like change the love interest. And...
Yeah.
Depends on what they were asked, what they were offering. Possibly.
Yeah, no, you're right, because we are very precious. Well, I am about my characters. And as I say, I wouldn't say they're like real people because that makes me sound slightly mad, but they...
I'm saying nothing at this point.
Just to interrupt there, Carol, I'll tell you a quick story. My wife is an avid reader. She'll get through 100, 120 books a year.
Wow.
She really is. And she watched one of the early episodes of Shetland.
Oh, yeah.
By Anne Cleeves.
Yeah.
And afterwards, she was saying to me, that was completely wrong. All the characters, it was all out of sync. Nothing was right about it. Anyway, she, out of the blue, she just emailed Anne Cleeves.
Oh,
Not
right.
expecting to get
like
an
you
answer.
do.
But she did. And basically what Anne Cleeves was saying was that she sold the rights. So therefore, she had no control over what was being produced. Now, as somebody hadn't read the book, when I watched Shetland, it seemed okay.
Yes, I love
Because I
watching
hadn't read
it.
the
I
book.
haven't read the books. I love the
So
series.
therefore, I didn't realise that in terms of the book, it was out of sync.
Yeah. The Veras, I mean, they're written by somebody else. Most of the series are written by somebody else. But the Christmas edition, I just read the book. It was her latest book, and that was pretty close to the plot. I was amazed. I was expecting it to have been a bit contorted.
I wonder whether she's now writing them with the adaptation in mind.
She might do.
Yeah,
She's a canny lady.
That changes the way you write.
Well, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, sometimes it's... I don't know if you've watched Harlan Coben's latest Netflix film, Fool Me Once.
Yes.
Has been on recently, been a big hit. And it was filmed close to us at Arley.
Yes,
Well,
Arley
filmed at
Hall.
Arley.
Yeah.
Which is a reason why I should probably watch it.
Yes,
I've got
and
to it, yeah.
it was excellent. It
Yeah.
really was an excellent adaptation of it. But it's little things like when you hear that the character, she's on her way to Manchester and she's going over the Runcorn Bridge. You know, because
Really?
because we live here,
I thought that.
we know she's going the wrong way. But if
She's
you
lost.
don't know the area,
She
it
mustn't
doesn't
have
matter.
sat nav, must she? No, somebody said to me, why Bayshore Detectives in Warrington? You know, my brother was quite put out that I was going to make up all these murders and give Warrington a bad name. But, I mean, you know, Midsummer Murders, beautiful part of the country, Death in Paradise, you know, who would have thought? And, of course, you've got all the Oxford murders and things.
Yeah.
I wrote it based in Warrington because I know Warrington and the surrounding area better than I know anywhere. So I can talk with the picture in my mind of the area and what it's like without having to start doing loads of research. And that was my, you know, reason for doing that.
And yet, Liz, with her cosy mysteries, you tend to make up places, don't you?
I have been known to, yeah. So, yeah, the Booker and Fitch books take place in a place called Haseby-on-Wyvern.
It's a very, very nice place.
It's lovely.
It is very nice.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've been to Shrewsbury, it bears some resemblance. Although I hadn't actually been to Shrewsbury until after we'd written the first couple of books, so go figure. But yes, it's a little market town, and I also invented Gadstershire, which has surrounding sort of satellite villages. So there's much Gadding, Little Gadding, Lesser Gadding, etc., etc. Gadster.
Very much like Midsummer Murders. In a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then again, I've also, I mean, I've got a few series which are based in London, which I figure is fair game, because
Yes.
so many people have been murdered in London in
Yeah.
books. It's like, well, come on now,
Yeah.
you've got to let this go. But I also have a series now set in Liverpool, but it's generally cold cases.
Oh.
And I kind of feel like, well, that makes a difference, particularly if it took place somewhere where, in a building that now isn't there anymore. So you can have some fun with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you're talking about the rivers of London,
Yes.
this series set in Liverpool has got a mystic side to it. It has, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I am thinking of the right thing. I've read so many of Liz's books. I have got the right plot
This
in
is the
my
more
head.
recent, so I get mixed up.
Yeah,
Still
yeah.
mixed up. I haven't introduced the wrong character into the book yet, but it'll happen.
So TV, as I said, I like The Strike. I like the Wire in the Blood. I'm just trying to think. Really, anything that's gritty. I quite like things. There was a series on recently, London Kills, and that's about a crime squad. And obviously deaths in London. I found that quite interesting. But people that have been, police officers say, that doesn't happen. Yeah. They don't murder somebody on Monday and arrest the killer on Friday. Well, not very often anyway, not unless the killer comes in and goes, it's a fair cop, I did it.
But that's the
This
same.
is why I don't write police.
But this is the same of any television programme. You know, as somebody who spent his whole working career as a teacher, I could never watch Waterloo Road because it bears no resemblance to any schools I've ever visited. So.
Yeah, and as an ex-nurse,
probably as well.
As well, yes.
I used to watch anything medical. And first of all, I'd try and guess the diagnosis of the person that had been brought in, and then be going, they wouldn't do that. They just wouldn't do. Isn't it funny how there's always consultants on the ward? Yeah. That doesn't happen.
It's a bit like when you watch Vera. You know,
yeah.
Vera say something to one of the, Mark, have you not followed that up? And I'm thinking, what about the other 36 people in the room that you're not asked to do anything? All the extras are wandering around with notepads, but don't say anything and don't do anything.
But there is one thing with crime, I don't know whether you both agree with me, they have lots of characters in. And it can sometimes get... I think you manage your characters really well. I sometimes have to think that I'm overwhelming somebody with too many characters and have to, draw back a little bit.
Although the thing is, I mean, if you've got a police department, you are going to have a lot of officers to deal with.
Yeah. I do try and keep the characters that deal with the murders mostly down to a small group. But like you say, when they're doing their daily sort of going through what's gone on, I do mention that there are other people in the room. You know, somebody from the back will shout something stupid, that type of thing.
And it's also, you may want to bring one of them in to replace one of the ones you murder.
Which I have done.
Yeah, so, you know, you've got to have your reserves.
You have, yeah.
Waiting on the sidelines, like warming up in their little bibs.
Reserve list, yeah.
That's where somebody like Ben Aranovich is quite clever with his Rivers of London series, because the squad that he's in, there's only, 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
You know, so it limits down.
Because it's so specialised, Mike, isn't it?
Specialised with them, be as wizards or training wizards.
Exactly. Yes.
Handy.
Yeah.
And I suppose with my Ghost Suspense series, which is sort of police.
Yeah.
Again, it's a small squad because they're
dead.
Working on. They're not all dead. Some of them are alive. Some more so than others, frankly. But you know.
So, going a step further, how do you think what you read influences what you write? I mean, some of your detective novels that go back to Sherlock Holmes. Yes, I mean, that is obvious that that's something you really enjoyed, because what you're writing comes through as somebody that was invested in the Sherlock Holmes character.
Oh, that's a tricky one. And also, I suppose, in some ways, a bit of a reaction against some of it, because I had this, you know, my first full-length novel was I had an idea, which is always a dangerous thing. And this was my, like, you know, my big idea and the thing I really wanted to write. And I think what it caused it was I was doing some research. I've sort of vaguely been thinking about a book about Mrs. Hudson. And I was rereading A Study in Scarlet and thinking about it. And it's like, poor Mrs. Hudson. I mean, the men are in clover here. They're basically looked after. They don't have to think about anything, you know, where their socks or their collars are coming from.
She's a mother figure, isn't she?
Well, you know, they're just waiting on hand and foot, and they can just kind of, you have Holmes with his, you know, rooms all around London where he can go and like change his disguise and then go back out again and stuff like that. It really is like a bit of a fantasy world. And I thought something it reminded me of was, this is not crime at all, but one of the Dirk Gently, actually I suppose it is Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, of course it's crime, by Douglas Adams. And there's a character called the Electric Monk who's sitting on a horse. And at one point it says, you know, the Electric Monk didn't really have thoughts about sitting on a horse all day. However, the horse had a lot of feelings about being sat on all day. And I kind of felt the same about Mrs. Hudson, who's got to run round after these two like overgrown boys playing at being cops and having, frankly, a lovely time. And she's got to keep them fed and watered and, you know, occasionally get an old thank you thrown her way. And I thought, yeah, what about if she, you know, had a story of her own? Because she's probably quite a smart woman in her own right. And that was what started it off, I think. And then I thought, oh, now, Dr. Watson, what if he was an unreliable narrator?
Interesting.
So, yeah, that kind of sparked it all up.
Because you reinvented Mrs. Hudson, didn't you, for your
She's a lot
books?
younger the way I write.
Yes. And you say she's hands-on. She wants to get involved in the investigations and everything.
Sometimes a little too much.
Yeah. But it did make compelling reading.
Oh, thank you. And I think the other thing with that is I've tried to sort of fit it around the canon. So if Holmes and Watson are supposed to be doing something else, like, you know, investigating a gigantic hound, then I'm not going to pull them out to do something else, you know, because they've got priorities.
It's a fascinating premise, isn't it? That there are these well-known stories which have got these minor characters who don't really do much. And that as writers, we can possibly take some of those characters and make them our main characters in stories.
Yeah, and we've got the ability to do that.
There are so many different versions of Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
Yeah. And people love it. People just love it. As I said in the first episode, there is a huge appetite for crime, fictional and you know, sort of true crime as well, which can be quite shocking. I don't watch as much of that. I did watch about the Yorkshire Ripper and you know, things like that, because again, it's to do with police procedures, because obviously it wasn't joined up thinking then. He went across borders and killed people, you know, in other counties, and nobody sort of put them together. Well, maybe some of the officers did, but they were junior and the senior officers weren't living. But now they've got this, I don't know whether it's still Holmes, but that was the name of the computer which all the information went into. And then you could spit it out wherever you were in the country. And things like that, I use those in my books. I try and use some forensic knowledge from, I suppose, a medical background as a nurse. So that's sort of where I'm coming from. Now, I just briefly want to mention, go on to what we're writing at the moment before we bring this episode to a conclusion. I know you're working on something, Liz. What are you writing at the moment?
I'm working on Booker and Fitch 5, Murder at Work. So they found the body in a interesting location, an incriminating location. And I'm just at the point of editing chapter 9 when a figure from the past is about to show their face.
Would you say these are all standalone books, but it's nice to have read them in the right order, I feel? But you could just pick up one and read it, couldn't you?
You could. It's difficult for me because I'm the sort of person who always starts a series with book 1, and if I can't get hold of book 1, I won't start it.
Yeah, that's what I should do.
I'm the sort of person who will say, well, you ought to start at book 1 because that's what I want to do. But yeah, you could, but I think the thing is, I know I said I've read a lot of Agatha Christie and stuff, and in that the detective doesn't really change.
No.
And I think particularly in my cosy books, I want the characters to come out at the end a bit different and having grown a bit in their personal lives, and possibly as a result of what they've been investigating.
Well,
so
yeah, that's definitely happened.
Jade and Fee at this point are different from Jade and Fee in book 1. So
yeah, I've seen the development of the characters.
Do them in order.
Yeah. Well, you should, yeah. I've seen the development of the characters, and I'm sort of really invested in them now.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want them to get
your
hurt.
series as well. You know, Wen's different, Cassie's different.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's very much a female-led department. It's the Cheshire Serious Crime Squad, and yes, the DCI is a powerful, independent woman. And I am actually working on book 4 at the moment, so about halfway through, and it's going well. Mike,
I found that body that went missing.
Yeah, now I've located it. Yeah, it's in my cupboard in the in the study.
Terrible when that happens.
Mike, what are you working on at the moment?
It's funny. It's a question that these two ladies are constantly asking me. What am I working on at the moment?
Not constantly. We give you a break sometimes.
Yes, and,
we nag him.
You do nag me, and I've often thought that I really need to branch out from the short stories. At the moment, I'm heavily invested in AI. I'm loving the whole idea of exploring AI, and I'm looking at the moment to see how AI can be used as a tool to help my writing. I'm playing around with that, and again, I'll go into more detail in future episodes about AI. Two things I'm thinking of at the moment. One is that I've been creating some really dark AI-generated images, which I think would make some good prompts for some short stories. That's the first thing. And secondly, and it goes back to a meeting I had with these two friends before Christmas, where I think I don't know whether I was, had a drink or something, but I vaguely said that.
By Kathy.
Yeah, I vaguely said something about writing a novella this year.
Yes, you did.
And so I think that's what I will be working on.
Yes.
If you were
Listeners,
to ask,
do ask questions about Mike's novella. We'd love to have a bit of help with the nagging.
If you were to ask me what it's about, I haven't the foggiest idea. But seriously, what I'm thinking of doing, I'm thinking of going into AI, because what you can do with I use ChatGPT, I can go in and say, give me some ideas for a novella. I want it to be 25 chapters long, about 30,000 words. Can you give me some ideas? And give it some information about what I like to write about. And it'll throw out some titles of books. It'll even give me a synopsis and some chapter headings. And I'm thinking of playing around with that and then working from that as a basis to see what I can come up with. So it's again linking that promised to write a novella with AI, but at the moment I haven't the foggiest idea.
Was
what's
that a
going to be
breaking news alert from the BBC?
It was
by the way,
breaking.
that Mike's
Yes,
writing
I'm
a
sorry.
novella?
Mike's
I'm
writing a
sorry.
novella.
King Charles is out of hospital. We'll just
Excellent.
we'll
Yeah.
just
And
just say
Jolly
that.
good.
And he's waiting for Mike's novella.
Yes,
Yes,
he
it
is.
probably is.
Yeah, So we're looking forward to that, and
you and I both.
Also, if listeners would like to suggest topics and titles for Mike's novella, I'm sure he'll be
Yeah.
grateful to receive.
yes,
Or a character that he might like to include.
What it will involve is at least one, if not many, murders.
I should hope so.
I think we are looking forward to that because the three of us all write differently, and this is what we're going to look at in our next episode. So if I can just say a momentarily goodbye to Liz and to Mike,
Thank you, Carol.
See you next time.
and don't sleep without the light on. You have been listening to Only Murders in My Mind, a Random Thought production, produced by John Bissett. The music in Peril was composed and recorded by OM Studio Strings.